The stars were endless. Commander Lariah stood alone in the observation deck of her ship, Valtarian, watching the galaxy stretch before her like a sea of frozen light. Every star she saw was a world conquered or destroyed, a world that had once fought back, screamed, and burned under her command. She was a child of war, shaped by duty and sharpened by victory. She had never known peace, and she never asked for it, but this time something felt different. Her orders were clear: eliminate the human colony in the Sol system. The High Council feared humans even though they were young, unadvanced, and scattered. To the mighty Valtari Empire, humanity was nothing more than a small flame that might one day spread into a wildfire. And Lariah's task was to crush that flame before it grew. She should have felt pride. This was supposed to be easy. One more world, one more victory, one more step toward order. Yet as she stared at the small blue planet glowing softly on her monitor, she felt something she had never felt before. Hesitation. She didn't understand it. The humans were primitive compared to her people. They still fought with metal ships, burned fuel instead of harnessing starlight, and dreamed of peace as if it were a real thing. The Valtari saw them as reckless and emotional. Dangerous not because of their strength, but because of their heart. Still, as she gazed at that little world, she couldn't help but notice the signals coming from it. Strange radio waves. Broken languages, songs carried through the emptiness of space. The humans were not hiding. They were singing into the void. One of the signals caught her attention, a simple song, weak and old, repeating over and over. She ordered her translator to decode it. The machine hummed softly and translated the words, "Though we are small, we reach for the stars. Though we are lost, we still believe." Lariah froze. It wasn't a message of war. It was a cry of hope. Her claws tightened against the edge of the control console. Hope, a word she had long forgotten. In the Valtari Empire, hope was a weakness. Only obedience mattered. Only order. But humans, they dared to hope even when they were surrounded by darkness. "Commander," her second-in-command interrupted. "We are in firing range. The Council awaits confirmation." Lariah said nothing. Her golden eyes stayed fixed on the blue planet below. The humans had no idea she was here. No idea that death was waiting above them. Yet even now they were reaching out to the stars as if trying to touch something greater than themselves. She remembered the faces of the species she had conquered, eyes filled with fear, hatred, or despair. But humans were different. When captured, they smiled. When beaten, they laughed. When cornered, they found a way to rise again. Her claws trembled. For the first time in her life, she didn't want to follow orders. She whispered almost to herself, "Why do they keep trying? Even when they must know they'll lose?" No one answered. The bridge was silent, filled only with the soft hum of the ship. She thought of the old stories the elders used to tell. Stories about a creature who defied the gods, who chose freedom over control, emotion over obedience. It was a myth, but suddenly, she wondered if humanity was that myth reborn. The console blinked again. The firing system was ready. All she had to do was speak one word, "Fire," and the humans would vanish like dust. But she didn't say it. Instead, she turned off the weapon system and whispered, "Hold position." Her officers looked at her in shock. "Commander?" The Council gave direct, "I said hold position." Her voice was calm, but the fire in it made everyone fall silent. She looked once more at the Earth, fragile, imperfect and alive, and in that moment, Commander Lariah, conqueror of 27 worlds, hero of the Valtari Empire, felt something strange bloom in her chest. Something small, something warm. She didn't know it yet, but that feeling would change her forever, because somewhere, deep within the stars, the heart of humanity had already reached her, and no empire, no order, no war could ever silence that. The next morning cycle aboard the Valtarian was quiet, too quiet. Commander Lariah hadn't slept. Her mind was full of questions she couldn't silence. Why did she hesitate yesterday? Why couldn't she just follow orders like always? The Valtari Empire never allowed doubt. It was a seed that grew into rebellion, and yet, that single human song still echoed in her mind like a heartbeat. Though we are lost, we still believe. Her second-in-command entered the bridge. "Commander, a small ship has entered our sector. Human design. It's unarmed." Lariah straightened. "Unarmed?" "Yes, Commander. It seems damaged. Life signs 1, she hesitated again. Logic said destroy it. A human scout could be dangerous. But something deep inside whispered otherwise. Prepare a tractor beam, she ordered softly. Bring it aboard. Her officers looked surprised but obeyed. Within minutes, the small silver vessel was pulled into the docking bay of the great warship. Smoke drifted from its engines. The air smelled of burning metal and human sweat. Lyraya walked down the ramp with 2 guards beside her. Her boots echoed across the steel floor. Inside the small ship, she found him. The lone human pilot. He was slumped in his chair, helmet cracked, face bruised but alive. His eyes opened slowly when he saw her. Despite his pain, he smiled. A weak, tired smile, but real. So, he croaked, voice rough. You're the welcoming committee? Her guards raised their weapons instantly. Silence, human. One of them hissed, but Lyraya lifted a hand. Lower your weapons, the human blinked. You speak English? I speak every language, she replied coldly. Who are you? He tried to sit up straighter. Commander Daniel Hayes, Terran Fleet. She studied him carefully. He was fragile, soft, almost breakable compared to her kind. Yet there was something in his eyes. Steady, fearless, alive. Why did you enter this system alone? She asked. Daniel chuckled weakly. I didn't plan to crash near your big scary ship if that's what you're asking. He coughed, then added, I was on a survey mission. My drive failed. Guess I'm lucky you caught me instead of vaporizing me. Lucky? She repeated. You think being captured by your enemy is luck? He smiled again. Depends on the enemy. Something in his tone unsettled her. He wasn't begging. He wasn't afraid. Even with plasma rifles aimed at him, he looked at her like he saw a person, not a monster. Lyraya turned away. Take him to the holding chamber, she ordered. As the guards escorted Daniel away, she felt her heart twist with an emotion she didn't recognize. Guilt, curiosity? She didn't know. Later, she stood outside the glass of his cell watching him. He sat on the cold floor humming softly to himself. It was the same tune from the human broadcast, that haunting melody of hope. Why do you sing? She asked suddenly. Her voice carried through the intercom. He looked up, surprised. Because it helps, he said simply. When you're afraid, singing reminds you you're still alive. Afraid? She echoed. You don't look afraid, he smiled. Oh, I am. But fear's not the problem. Giving up is, Lyraya frowned. You humans fight for survival like every other species. What makes you think you're special? Daniel leaned back against the wall and looked straight at her. We don't fight just to survive. We fight because we believe tomorrow can be better. Even if today is hell. Those words struck her harder than any weapon. She felt her chest tighten. That belief. It's dangerous, she whispered. Maybe, Daniel said softly. But it's also what keeps us human. Silence filled the room. Lyraya turned away, but his words followed her down the corridor. We fight because we believe tomorrow can be better. No Valtari had ever spoken like that. They obeyed, they conquered, they ruled. But belief, hope, those things didn't exist in her world. That night she stood again at the viewing window looking out into the endless stars. For the first time they didn't seem cold. They seemed alive, as if something invisible connected every spark of light together. She realized she didn't hate humans. She feared them, not because of their weapons or their numbers, but because of what they carried inside. Something her empire had long destroyed within itself. A quiet voice inside her whispered, maybe that's what the Council fears too. And as she closed her eyes, that same human song played again in her mind, faint and eternal. Though we are small, we reach for the stars. Though we are lost, we still believe. Lyraya didn't know it yet, but the war she feared most had already begun, not between fleets or worlds, but within her own heart. Days passed aboard the Valtarian, and the silence between the stars grew heavier. Commander Lyraya tried to focus on her duties, but her thoughts always drifted back to the human in the cell, Daniel Hayes. His words had left marks on her mind like fire. We fight because we believe tomorrow can be better. She had replayed that line 100 times. It made no logical sense. Empires didn't survive on belief. They survived on power. Yet something in his voice, calm and sure, made her wonder if power without purpose was worth anything at all. That morning, her second-in-command, Officer Reln, entered the bridge. His face was tense. Commander, orders from the High Council. We are to begin the strike on the human colony immediately. They've confirmed full fleet support. No survivors. Laria's chest tightened. She had known this moment was coming, but her heart still sank. She turned to the viewport, and there it was, Earth. Blue, peaceful, alive. A fragile world shining in the dark. Commander? Reln asked again. Shall we charge the cannons? Her throat felt dry. Prepare all systems, she said quietly. The crew began moving at once. Red lights flickered across the bridge. Engines hummed like angry beasts. Every sound reminded her of what she was about to do, end an entire world. When everything was ready, she walked slowly toward the viewing glass. The earth glowed like a sapphire below, and beyond it the human ships moved to defend their home. Small, weak, hopelessly outnumbered, yet not retreating. They know they can't win, Reln said. Why do they still fight? Lyria whispered almost to herself. Because they believe they can. He looked at her confused. But she didn't explain. She pressed a command button. Bring me the human prisoner, she said. Moments later, Daniel was brought to the bridge under guard. He looked pale but calm. When he saw the view outside, his eyes widened. Earth, his home, surrounded by alien warships. So, this is it, he said softly. You're going to destroy us. Laria's voice trembled. That is my order. He looked at her, sadness in his eyes, but no anger. Do you always follow orders, Commander? His question cut deeper than he could know. Her claws clenched behind her back. For most of her life, she had followed orders from her teachers, her generals, her council. She had never questioned, never refused. Obedience was everything. But now, looking at him, a single human facing extinction with courage instead of fear, she felt something shift inside her. What would you do if you were me? She asked quietly. Daniel took a slow breath. I'd remember that power means nothing if you lose what makes you alive. His voice was steady, almost gentle. You don't have to save us, Lyria. Just don't lose yourself. For a moment, time stopped. Every sound on the bridge seemed to fade. Only his words echoed. She turned away, staring at Earth again. The ocean glimmered. The clouds moved like soft dreams. And for a second, she thought she could almost hear that human song again. Though we are lost, we still believe. Commander, Reln said sharply, we are awaiting your command. The Council demands immediate action. Lyria's breath shook. Her claws hovered over the firing control. All it would take was one word. Her crew stared at her. The Council was listening. Her entire life had led to this moment, to prove loyalty through destruction. And then, very quietly, she said the words that changed everything. Hold fire. The room went silent. Reln's eyes widened in disbelief. Commander, that's treason. I said hold fire, she repeated louder this time. Commander, the Council will— I know what they will do, she interrupted. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with something fierce and human. But I will not destroy a world that still believes in hope. For a long moment, no one moved. Then she turned toward the guards. Take the human back to his cell, safely. Reln stared at her like she'd gone mad. You're throwing your life away for them. Lyria looked out at Earth one last time and whispered, maybe. For the first time I'm living, the bridge was silent again. The cannons powered down. The lights dimmed, and in the deep, endless dark of space, the war inside her began. A war between duty and compassion, between what she was born to be and what she was becoming. She had disobeyed the most powerful empire in the galaxy, and somewhere inside her heart, for the first time she didn't feel afraid. She felt free. The silence after Lyria's order was heavier than space itself. Her crew stood frozen, their faces pale with fear. No one dared speak. The glowing control panels flickered quietly as if holding their breath. She had done it. She had disobeyed the High Council. The order not to fire had already reached the Valtari communication network. Within minutes, the voice of the Council filled the bridge, cold, sharp, and merciless. Commander Lyria of the Valtarian, you have violated Imperial Protocol 001. You are relieved of command and charged with treason. Her second-in-command, Reln, looked torn between duty and shock. Commander. They're serious. They've activated your recall code. Lyria stood tall, her expression calm. I know. She looked out the viewport one last time. Earth still glowed below and untouched, alive, beautiful. She felt peace even as she knew the end was coming. Realm, she said quietly. You are now in command. Do what you must. He swallowed hard. I wish you hadn't done this, Commander. I wish my people had learned to listen before destroying, she said softly. Guards surrounded her, their weapons raised, their faces filled with unease. None of them wanted to arrest her, but the law was the law. She didn't resist. She simply whispered, "Protect them. Don't let the humans see us as monsters." And with that, she was taken away. The trial was swift, cruel, and public. Before the great council of the Valtari Empire, Lyraya stood alone. The golden banners of her people hung behind the elders like walls of judgment. "You dared to defy an order of destruction," one elder hissed. "You let the human infestation survive." "Why?" She raised her head proudly. "Because they are not an infestation. They are life. They are what we once were before we lost ourselves to pride." The crowd gasped. No one had ever spoken that way to the council. "Silence her," an elder roared. But she continued, her voice trembling yet strong. "You fear them because they remind you what we lost, and compassion, courage, hope. You call them weak, yet I saw strength in their kindness. I saw honor in their pain. If that is weakness, then maybe weakness is what we need to remember who we are." Her words echoed through the chamber. The council leader's eyes turned cold. "You are no longer Valtari. Your rank, your name, and your home are forfeit. You will be exiled, alone." Lyraya bowed her head. "Then so be it." They sent her away in a small escape pod with no crew, no weapons, and barely enough energy to drift through the void. Days passed in silence. She stared at the stars, hungry and weak, yet strangely at peace. Her world had rejected her, but her heart felt lighter. Still, part of her wondered if the humans even knew what she had done. Would they remember her? Would they understand why she spared them? As the pod drifted near the red dust of Mars' orbit, her systems began to fail. Sparks flew, lights dimmed. She was losing oxygen fast, her vision blurred. "So this is how it ends," she whispered. "At least I die free." Then, through the thick glass of her pod, she saw a faint light, a ship approaching. Human design, small, battered, but real. Her heart skipped. The pod's sensors blinked weakly. A voice came through the static, a warm, familiar human. "Lyraya? Do you hear me?" She blinked, her breathing shallow. "Daniel?" His voice came clearer this time. "Yeah, you didn't think we'd just let you float out here alone, did you?" Her eyes filled with tears, something she didn't even know her species could do. "You came for me?" "Of course," he said. "You saved my people. Now let me save you." Moments later, the human ship latched onto her pod, pulling it in. As the airlock opened, Daniel rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. "You're safe now," he whispered. She looked at him weakly, her voice trembling. "Why, after all I've done to your kind? Why help me?" He smiled softly. "Because that's what being human means. We don't repay kindness with hate." For the first time, Lyraya felt something she had never experienced. Warmth not from light or machines, but from the heart of another being. She rested her head against his shoulder. "Your species is impossible," she murmured. Daniel chuckled softly. "You'll get used to it." As the ship turned toward Earth, Lyraya looked out the window one last time. The stars shimmered, not as cold, distant lights, but as endless possibilities. She was no longer a commander, no longer a warrior, no longer Valtari, but she was alive, and perhaps somewhere deep inside her, a small part of her was beginning to understand what it truly meant, to be human. The first sunrise Lyraya ever saw from Earth was nothing like the light of her homeworld. It was soft, gentle. The golden rays spilled across the ocean like liquid fire, and the wind carried the scent of salt and life. It was warm, so different from the cold mechanical air she had always known aboard Valtari warships. She stood on a small human balcony, wearing clothes Daniel had given her, simple fabric soft against her skin. The city below was alive. People laughed, children ran, machines hummed. It was noisy, chaotic, imperfect, and yet beautiful. Daniel stepped beside her, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to her. She took it carefully, sniffing it. "It smells burnt," she said, confused. He laughed. "That's part of the charm. You'll get used to it." She took a small sip and almost coughed. "You drink this by choice?" Daniel grinned. "Every morning." For the first time she smiled, a small, uncertain smile, but real. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, Lyria began to learn what it meant to live among humans. She watched them argue, cry, laugh, and forgive, things her people had forgotten long ago. Humans made mistakes constantly, yet instead of giving up, they tried again. She found that fascinating. Once she asked Daniel, "Why do your people fight each other so much? You have no empire, no unifying order, yet you still survive." Daniel thought for a moment, then said, "Because we care. Sometimes we fight because we're afraid to lose what we love, sometimes because we're too proud, but in the end we always come back together." His words lingered with her. On her world, love had been considered weakness. Emotion was dangerous, but here emotion was life itself. One evening she followed Daniel to a hospital where humans were helping victims of a shuttle crash. The sight shook her. Doctors and nurses rushed from one room to another, their faces tired but determined. People were hurt, crying, scared, yet no one was left alone. Lyria watched a human child clutch Daniel's hand as he comforted her. "You'll be okay, kiddo," he said softly. "You're stronger than you think." The child smiled through her tears. Something inside Lyria broke quietly. She realized she had seen countless battles, but never compassion like this. Not for power, not for glory, just for kindness. That night she stood outside, staring up at the stars again. Her reflection shone faintly in the glass. For the first time she saw not a commander, not a soldier, but a person. "Do you ever regret saving me?" she asked Daniel as he joined her. He smiled. "Never. You risked everything for us." "I disobeyed my entire world," she said softly. "Now I don't belong anywhere." Daniel looked at her gently. "Then maybe it's time to belong to something new." She turned toward him, confused. "Something new?" He nodded. "Belong to the future. To the idea that no matter what species we are, we can still build something together." His words were simple, but they struck her deeper than any weapon ever had. Later that week, Daniel took her to a small human school. The children were studying the stars. When they saw her, tall, silver-skinned with glowing golden eyes, they didn't run or scream. They smiled and asked questions. "Are you really from another world?" one little boy asked. "Yes," she said softly. "Did your world have trees like ours?" A girl asked. Lyria thought for a moment. "No, but we had crystals that sang when the wind touched them." The children's eyes widened in wonder. They listened as she told stories of faraway planets, glowing moons, and the sound of stars singing in silence. For the first time in her life, her stories were not about war. They were about beauty, about life. When the lesson ended, one of the children handed her a drawing, a human and an alien holding hands beneath a sky full of stars. At the bottom, in messy handwriting, it said, "Friends forever." Her chest tightened. She couldn't speak. All she could do was smile. That night, Daniel found her sitting quietly, the drawing in her hands. "They don't see you as an enemy," he said softly. "They see you as hope." She looked up at him. "Hope," she repeated. "A word that once made me weak. Now feels like strength." He nodded. "That's humanity for you." She looked at him for a long time, and for the first time since leaving her homeworld, she felt something she had never known before. Peace. The stars above didn't seem distant anymore. They felt close, alive, warm, like hearts beating together across the void. Lyria realized she had not just learned about humanity. She had started to feel it. The peace did not last. For months, Lyria lived among humans, learning their ways, learning what love, laughter, and hope truly meant. But peace is never eternal. One cold evening, as the wind howled outside the base, the sky above Earth shimmered with unnatural light. Daniel rushed into the control room, his face pale. "They've found us," Lyria turned sharply. "Who?" He looked at her with sadness in his eyes. "Your people," she froze. The Valtari fleet had arrived. Massive silver ships filled the black sky like ghosts of her past. Their weapons glowed, ready to fire. The same fleet she had once commanded now hovered above Earth, ready to destroy it. Lyria's chest tightened painfully. The war she thought she had escaped had come for her, and for the humans who had given her a home. "Command wants us in orbit," Daniel said. "They're calling every ship we've got. We'll need you," she shook her head. "If I join you, they'll call me traitor again." Daniel stepped closer. "Lyria, you already are." She met his eyes. There was no anger in his voice, only truth. and deep inside she knew he was right. She followed him to the hangar. Soldiers hurried past them, loading weapons, preparing ships, saying goodbye to their families. Lyraya could feel their fear, but beneath it, courage. Humans were afraid, yet still they fought. When they reached Daniel's ship, she stopped for a moment. "You're going up there?" He smiled faintly. "Someone has to." Her heart ached. "You'll die." "Maybe," he said. "But if we don't fight for our home, what's the point of living?" Lyria looked at the humans running around them, so fragile, so breakable, and yet unshakable. She thought about the children, their laughter, their drawings, their belief in friendship. If her people destroyed this world, all that light would be gone. No, she couldn't let that happen. "Then I'm coming with you," she said. Daniel blinked in surprise. "You don't have to." "I know," she said. "That's why I will." Hours later, the blackness of space surrounded them. The battle had begun. Human ships moved like fireflies against the massive Valtari war fleet. Explosions lit the void. The radio was filled with static and desperate voices. Lyraya stood beside Daniel on the command deck, giving directions, translating enemy movements, using everything she had once learned as a commander, now to protect the very species she had been sent to destroy. Enemy flagship charging weapons. Someone shouted. Lyraya's eyes narrowed. "That's my old ship," she whispered. The Valtarian, the vessel that once obeyed her every command. Now it aimed to burn the world she called home. "Can you stop them?" Daniel asked. She hesitated. Her claws trembled over the console. "I can try." She opened a private channel to her old ship. Her voice was steady, though her heart was breaking. "This is Commander Lyraya," she said. "Stand down. Do not fire on these people." Static filled the line. Then a familiar voice answered. Her former officer, Reln. "Lyraya, you betrayed the Empire once. Don't do it again." "Reln," she said softly. "You know me. You know I don't speak without reason. These humans are not our enemies. They are what we lost. They are what we could be again. You sound like them," he spat. "Maybe I do," she said, her voice trembling. "Because they taught me what it means to live, and not as a weapon, but as a heart that feels." For a long moment silence filled the airwaves. Then Reln's voice hardened. "Goodbye, Commander." The Valtarian's cannons glowed, ready to fire. "Brace for impact." Daniel shouted. Lyraya looked at him. The human who had saved her, believed in her, changed her. She made her choice. "Divert all power to forward shields," she ordered. "We're going in." Daniel's eyes widened. "That's suicide." "Maybe," she said softly. "But if we fall, we'll fall for something that matters." She steered the ship forward, straight into the fire. Human and Valtari vessels clashed all around them. Light, noise, chaos, and through it all, Lyraya fought with every breath. At the last moment, she opened one final broadcast, across all frequencies. "This is Lyraya of the Valtari Empire." Her voice echoed through the stars. "Once I believed obedience was strength, but I was wrong. Strength is compassion, power is mercy, and humanity is hope." Her words reached every ship, even the Valtarian hesitated. Then, suddenly, the Valtari cannons shut down. One by one, their ships pulled back. Reln's voice came again, softer now. "You've changed us, Commander. Maybe they're worth saving." Lyraya exhaled shakily. Her hands fell from the controls. Daniel turned to her, his voice full of awe. "You did it." She looked at him, eyes glimmering with tears. "No," she whispered. "We did." Outside the stars glowed brighter, and as if watching silently. The battle was over, but inside Lyraya, something far greater had begun. She was no longer a commander of war. She was a guardian of hope. The peace did not last. For months, Lyraya lived among humans, learning their ways, learning what love, laughter, and hope truly meant. But peace is never eternal. One cold evening, as the wind howled outside the base, the sky above Earth shimmered with unnatural light. Daniel rushed into the control room, his face pale. "They found us." Lyraya turned sharply. "Who?" He looked at her with sadness in his eyes. "Your people." She froze. The Valtari fleet had arrived. Massive silver ships filled the black sky like ghosts of her past. Their weapons glowed, ready to fire. The same fleet she had once commanded now hovered above Earth, ready to destroy it. Lyraya's chest tightened painfully. The war she thought she had escaped had come for her, and for the humans who had given her a home. "Command wants us in orbit," Daniel said. "They're calling every ship we've got." We'll need you, she shook her head. If I join you, they'll call me traitor again. Daniel stepped closer. Lariah, you already are. She met his eyes. There was no anger in his voice, only truth. And deep inside, she knew he was right. She followed him to the hangar. Soldiers hurried past them, loading weapons, preparing ships, saying goodbye to their families. Lariah could feel their fear, but beneath it, courage. Humans were afraid, yet still they fought. When they reached Daniel's ship, she stopped for a moment. You're going up there. He smiled faintly. Someone has to. Her heart ached. You'll die. Maybe, he said. But if we don't fight for our home, what's the point of living? Lariah looked at the humans running around them. So fragile, so breakable, and yet unshakable. She thought about the children, their laughter, their drawings, their belief in friendship. If her people destroyed this world, all that light would be gone. No, she couldn't let that happen. Then I'm coming with you, she said. Daniel blinked in surprise. You don't have to. I know, she said. That's why I will. Hours later, the blackness of space surrounded them. The battle had begun. Human ships moved like fireflies against the massive Valtari war fleet. Explosions lit the void. The radio was filled with static and desperate voices. Lariah stood beside Daniel on the command deck, giving directions, translating enemy movements, using everything she had once learned as a commander, now to protect the very species she had been sent to destroy. Enemy flagship charging weapons. Someone shouted. Lariah's eyes narrowed. That's my old ship, she whispered. The Valtarian, the vessel that once obeyed her every command. Now it aimed to burn the world she called home. Can you stop them? Daniel asked. She hesitated. Her claws trembled over the console. I can try. She opened a private channel to her old ship. Her voice was steady, though her heart was breaking. This is Commander Lariah, she said. Stand down. Do not fire on these people. Static filled the line. Then a familiar voice answered, her former officer, Relon. Lariah, you betrayed the Empire once. Don't do it again. Relon, she said softly. You know me. You know I don't speak without reason. These humans are not our enemies. They are what we lost. They are what we could be again. You sound like them, he spat. Maybe I do, she said, her voice trembling. Because they taught me what it means to live. Not as a weapon, but as a heart that feels. For a long moment, silence filled the airwaves. Then Reln's voice hardened. Goodbye, Commander. The Valtarian's cannons glowed, ready to fire. Brace for impact. Daniel shouted. Lariah looked at him. The human who had saved her, believed in her, changed her. She made her choice. Divert all power to forward shields, she ordered. We're going in. Daniel's eyes widened. That's suicide. Maybe, she said softly. But if we fall, we'll fall for something that matters. She steered the ship forward, straight into the fire. Human and Valtari vessels clashed all around them. Light, noise, chaos, and through it all, Lariah fought with every breath. At the last moment, she opened one final broadcast across all frequencies. This is Lariah of the Valtari Empire. Her voice echoed through the stars. Once I believed obedience was strength. But I was wrong. Strength is compassion. Power is mercy. And humanity is hope. Her words reached every ship, even the Valtarian hesitated. Then suddenly, the Valtari cannons shut down. One by one, their ships pulled back. Reln's voice came again, softer now. You've changed us, Commander. Maybe they're worth saving. Lariah exhaled shakily. Her hands fell from the controls. Daniel turned to her, his voice full of awe. You did it. She looked at him, eyes glimmering with tears. No, she whispered. We did. Outside, the stars glowed brighter, as if watching silently. The battle was over, but inside Lariah, something far greater had begun. She was no longer a commander of war. She was a guardian of hope.